What a great day to be together. It's our first of many occasions. The first day of the week. It's the first day of the year. It's the first day that we are all together. So it's really exciting to be together. We don't often think about the beginning of things as being so important. We sometimes overlook that the first day of the week is vitally important because we set an agenda for our week as we think about what's ahead. And especially this time of the year as we think about the future, the whole year that is ahead of us. And so this morning I want us to consider what it means to prepare for the year ahead. To prepare for the year ahead, we have to be able to at least look back on where we've come from. There are many sayings about the past, and one of them is, how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you come from? Or you're doomed to repeat the failures of the past unless you study the past and you know what was done in the past and you correct in the future what was done in the past. I think this is at the heart of God's message because He gave us a book that we have. We have a book that's thousands of years old. Now I always think about the Bible and what it means to us, but think about those who are recorded in the Bible. Their stories are told over and over and over again. Some are famous. Some are infamous. Some we are excited about. Some we appreciate. And then there are some we'd rather not repeat. There are some topics and subjects we'd rather not discuss. But they must be. God would otherwise not have recorded them if they were not necessary. And so there are things that we have to look at. In times like this, sometimes we don't want to. Sometimes we don't want to look back. We have bad images in our mind of those in Bible times who look back. Can you think of a famous character in our Bibles that looked back and what happened to that gaze? I think that gives us an insight into how we ought to look back. And then those who look forward, some who look forward and they look at the things that they're about to do, or the control, the measure of control they think they have in their lives, but they really don't. God is ultimately in control. From our passage this morning out of Proverbs chapter 19, the writer says, many are the plans in a man's heart. I don't know what your year is ahead of you, what it looks like, what the potential is, but I'm sure you're making all kinds of plans as you look to the future of this year. But notice what he says. He says, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. Sometimes we're going to fail, and it's on purpose. God has purposed it that way. And sometimes we're going to succeed, and God has purposed it that way. I don't know about you, but I think as we grow, as our faith matures, as we develop as Christians, as we begin to rely more and more on God, as we begin to see things as He sees things, the world becomes a distant memory. The world that tells us that things happen by luck, or by chance, or by happenstance, all those things are untrue. What we know about God and how He's revealed Himself to us is that He is in complete control. Everything happens as He determines it to happen. We have all these plans. They might even be founded on good principles, good ideas, good things that we want for ourselves, but ultimately, God's will be done. I want you to think about this past year. I want you to do a little self-evaluation. What is good about thinking about the past is you can look back at what you have done, what was successful, and what was an obvious failure. And we don't have to share it with each other. We can all sit where we are right now. We can think about this past year. Now, there are many things we can think about. There are many things that we need to be focusing on, but I want us to focus on the three things that I have in my outline because that just makes sense this morning to help keep us on track. But these three things I think are vitally important for us as believers. I also believe that these three things are vitally important for us as two churches become one. 2 assemblies become one assembly. 2 families become one family. As we begin to integrate, what kinds of things can help us as we look to the year ahead? I believe the first thing we need to think about is, how was your prayer routine or your prayer life in 2016? Did you have a goal? Did you meet that goal? We ask, why about our prayer life? Well, our relationship with our God is the most important relationship we have. It is always the most important relationship, and it will always be the most important relationship. God wants to hear from you. He wants to understand your heart. He wants to hear what's on your mind. He wants to see your goals and your dreams and your vision. Unless we put God in that place where He deserves to be, the first commandment, that there is only one God, unless we put Him there, I think 2017 is going to be a bad year. So when we look back at 2016, what did we do to keep up that relationship with God? Do you feel, or did you feel closer last year to God? Or did you feel further from Him? I know sometimes you feel like perhaps you're just saying words and you're repeating them over and over again and nothing seems to happen. I know sometimes God seems like He's very distant, that He's far away, and that He's not communicating with us. But that is not the truth. And God is with us all the time, so much so that the Bible tells us that He lives inside of us. You see, when we think and when we feel, He hears. He understands. He feels. He is moved as we are moved. God is in complete contact with us. But it does require us thinking and expressing our thoughts and our feelings. Look at this passage out of James chapter 4. I think it's a very interesting passage. Come near to God, and He will come near to you. I want you to let that passage sink in. Come near to God, and He will come near to you. God has already taken the first step to establish a relationship with us. In order for us to continue the relationship, we must make the next step. If we were playing tennis, God has already played the ball over the net. The ball is on your side. Prayer is your responsibility to return what God has already revealed to us. God is listening all of the time. If we draw near to Him, He will draw near to us. Many times we think about God as pulling away from us or being at such a distance that we can't reach Him. But what we've got to realize is that God is always there. He's waiting. He's poised. And what is amazing about our God is not only does He listen to every thought, and not only does He feel everything we feel, but everybody that reveals themselves to Him. Everybody that's in contact with Him, He hears and He understands. Our God is amazing. It is amazing that God has a capacity to understand all of our thoughts. And He is capable of feeling what we feel. What does that tell us about God? What does that tell us about how important our prayer life is? I don't know what your bar was like, what the standard was, what your goal was for 2016. But let's improve upon that. I don't think we can ever look back to the past and say that was the best year I've ever had. I think the best years are always ahead of us because we can always improve. And ultimately, the best years are ahead of us. And they won't be in this life. They'll be in the life to come. How about your study habits? How were your study habits in 2016? God knows you very well. How well do you know Him? I think it's vitally important for us to study because we get to understand who God is. We get to be like Him in the flesh. But most importantly, others get to see what God is like. I think we are the greatest solution to the problems in the world because God has given us that responsibility. He has laid in our laps the responsibility of continuing His message. It's vitally important for us to understand it. Did you grow last year? Did you mature just a little bit as you look back? Are there new things that you learned? Did you become better at applying some of the knowledge that you already understood, so therefore you improved in wisdom? I think as we look forward to 2017, there's always something we can improve upon. Listen to Paul's instruction to Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 15. He says, do your best. Do your best. Last year might be a good year. This year might be a better year, but do your best, he says, to present yourself to God as one approved, a workman who does not need to be ashamed, and who correctly handles the word of truth. There's a lot of scripture out there. There's a lot of talk about God out there. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of lies about God out there. Who's going to set the record straight? Who's going to lead by example? Who's going to reveal the message that needs to be heard? The angels are not going to come down and do it for us. That is our responsibility. It's an enormous task. It's a challenging task. But there is no way we can meet the challenge unless we are studying. I would guess people have asked you questions that you had no answer for. And that's fine. Write down the question. Write down the question. You don't have to know everything, but you can figure it out. I challenge you to think about 2017 as an opportunity to grow. We don't have to get red-faced and embarrassed. We don't have to get angry and frustrated when somebody challenges us with a thought that perhaps we've never really considered or asked us a question we have no answer for. That's the perfect time to say, you know what, I'm growing. I will study that, and I will come back to you with the best answer I can find. We need to be challenged by those who don't know, and we need to see that as a challenge. We can't become embarrassed. We can't quiver and shake. We can't hide from people. We can't get angry at them. We can't make a personal attack. They need to know who God is. And we have the responsibility of being that messenger. I encourage you to think about what you did last year when it came to your personal study time, and what you're going to do in 2017. How you're going to change how the world sees God through you. How about your fellowship? How have you got to know your church family? Now for us, that's going to be a huge task this year. If you're not wearing a name tag, please wear one. I'm not going to tell you how my name is pronounced, and maybe you've heard it. Hopefully you haven't. Because if you make a mistake, that's really good for me, because I can make a mistake with your name. It's fair, isn't it? But we're going to have to learn who we are. That's going to be a tough task. I don't know what you did in 2016, but 2017 is definitely a challenge. If you had to interact and mingle with and encourage and be encouraged by 150 people, you now have 300. I think that's the scariest thing. We can't get upset with each other. We can't get down. Yes, it's very difficult. But we've got to put the time and the effort in. How much time did you spend in 2016? How much effort? How many activities did you attend? I don't know where your bar is, what your goal was, but we can improve upon that. We're going to have to improve upon that this next year. I don't think we should become discouraged, because these should be encouraging times that we gather together. Isn't it wonderful to hear so many voices singing and praising God together? Isn't it an encouraging thing? When you are not here, you will be missed. You will be missed. Those who are not here today are missed. You're important to this family. I don't know what it's like in your family. Some of you might have the tradition. I was listening to some family traditions on Thanksgivings and Christmases when the family gathers together. Some families leave open spaces at the table. They leave those spaces open because somebody recently left the family and they missed. If you don't think you're important to this family, you are mistaken. God certainly will miss you. At every activity, at every event. Listen to what Paul says, 1 Thessalonians 4, 9 and 10. He says, "Now about brotherly love, we do not need to write to you, for you yourselves have been taught by God to love each other. And in fact, you do love all the brothers throughout Macedonia. Yet we urge you, brothers, to do so more and more." More and more. Paul wanted the church to go from good to better to best. We should do our best to be together. I know sometimes it's difficult because we have many challenges in life. Sometimes we're not even in town. Our work takes us places. Sometimes we are ill. Sometimes we don't even feel like being there. But isn't it great to know people make such a great effort to be together? I think we need to know what it takes for us to be here. I know people that used to come to worship, and they were struggling with cancer, and they were taking cancer treatments, and they were in so much pain. But they understood that it was worthwhile going. And I don't know how they sat there listening to me go on and on and on and on, but they did. Because of the encouragement. I know some that have back issues that couldn't even sit down long enough. And I would tell them, you know what? Go stand in the back. Doesn't disturb me. If I see you standing in the back, I'll know you got back trouble. That's fine. It's worth being here. God made this family so that we could encourage each other. You know, if we can't get along here, how in the world are we going to get along in eternity? This is your time to practice being an eternal being. This is your chance to get used to it. This is the challenge that we have, to learn to love each other more and more. So in closing, what will you do? I think we should take the time to think about what are we going to do in 2017. In our prayer time, our personal time with God, our study time, trying to understand Him, being prepared to be the kind of Christians we should be. And then what we're going to mean to each other when we gather together, what we're going to bring to the table. I encourage you to think about those things as you go into this week, as you prepare for 2017, and as you think about what we are achieving here as two families becoming one. I want to close with these words from Carl Sandburg. He says, "Time is the coin of your life. It is the only coin you have, and only you can determine how it will be spent. Be careful lest you let other people spend it for you." And that last phrase is vitally important for us. Let's let God determine how we spend our time. Let's see things through His eyes. Let's be like Him. That we are not trapped by these physical bodies, but we think with a spiritual mind. And 2017 is certainly going to be a better year than 2016. I encourage you to think about that as you go into this week and as you make your personal plans for how you're going to strategically tackle 2017 as a follower of Jesus.